friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm going to be discussing one of my new favorites of the year, and that is When Oceans Rise by Robin Alvarez. This is a debut novel, so I got a lot of good things to say. I mentioned this slightly, a little bit, hinted at it in my April wrap-up, so I will leave that link down below for y'all if you guys want to take a look at all the books I read in April. Let's just get into the book and discuss all of my thoughts, because I really did enjoy this book, and I didn't think I was, not that I didn't think I was going to, but I just had like zero expectations going into the book, and then I read it and I was like, maybe I should have given myself a bit more expectations. Starting off with the synopsis, When Ocean Rises is a YA, kind of like urban fantasy novel following young Malaya. Her family has a curse where the girl's first love almost always ends up in them getting hurt or killed. Malaya doesn't think that. She thinks her boyfriend is the one who's gonna break the curse. She thinks that he can do no wrong. That is until a year or so, I want to say, down the line, when she is desperate and isolated and her boyfriend has gaslit and emotionally manipulated the living heck out of her. She is alone and desperate, and the relationship has quickly turned from toxic to basically abusive. After one little riptide later, after a nice little day of skipping school, she is then transported to the Sea Witch's cave, where she is offered a choice: give up her voice and be transported to a timeline where she didn't make these mistakes, she isn't with her boyfriend, or stay in this timeline and suffer the consequences of her actions. Much like The Little Mermaid that this book is loosely based off of, she takes the choice of losing her voice and gets transported to another reality. While she's getting comfortable in this new reality, she realizes that the witch is using her voice to manipulate and use all of the monsters from Filipino mythology to kind of disrupt the world and bring about the Sea Witch's own agenda. Trigger warnings for this book: there is obviously gaslighting, physical abuse, mental abuse, toxic and abusive relationships, all that jazz. So keep an eye out for that if you're not quite ready for it. It does get a little graphic in the middle, in some parts of the book, so just be wary of that when you read it. You know, it is a book discussing abuse, so expect that to be in there. Now, as for my first thoughts, like I said, I didn't really have very many expectations to get to about the book. I roughly remembered when I started reading the book that it was a Little Mermaid retelling, but only after I got to the actual more explicit Little Mermaid references, with her losing her voice, the Sea Witch in the cave, all that jazz. But what really drew me in at first was the cover. Look at this cover. It was absolutely gorgeous, and I was just like, I need it in my life. I need it on my shelves. It just has to be mine. So I thankfully got an ARC from the author, so thank you so much to Robin Alvarez. I forgot to mention that in the beginning of this video. I will leave links to the book below for you, so you guys can go ahead and check it out. But I was really intrigued by the book, and I was like, I had zero expectations. None. I didn't know. I barely had an understanding about what the book was about until it was almost time for me to read it. And I have to say that was probably one of my better ideas at the time. To go into the book with very minimal ideas, expectations. I'm gonna start with the bad things that I thought I had with this book, or things I didn't like about this book, just because I feel like there are very few and far in between, and then I can get into actually gushing about the things I enjoyed about this book. One of the things I didn't like was that I feel like we did lose some of the plot. I think that the plot of Malaya finding herself again, Malaya? This happens every time. Malaya. Finding herself again and figuring out exactly who she is, and trusting herself again, and trusting that she can trust in other people and love other people romantically again. I felt that kind of got a little bit lost in the plot. We kind of saw it disappear for a little bit because they were too busy trying to hunt down and figure out a solution for all the Filipino creatures roaming the earth and causing a hullabaloo, and what that exactly means. That we lost the bits of Malaya really just trying to find herself, until it was almost to the end where she kind of had to trust all of her instincts again, and trust that she was going to be able to figure out a solution and find a way to get herself out of the mess that she inevitably caused. I think we did kind of lose that in there, and I just wanted to go back and maybe cut a couple of scenes in here and there, and see if maybe cutting us one scene and allowing us more of Malaya's introspection, even though she literally cannot talk for the entirety of this novel. So there's a lot of introspection, more introspection rather in the middle, rather than her getting stuck in the introspective portion toward the end. There was for sure a scene or two toward the end of the book where it really got confusing for me, and I had to like really go back and like reread the book and like really analyze what was happening in those scenes, just because I was like, wait, I reread this scene like 3 times already, and then once I reread through it, I was like, okay, this is a mistake. And then I got to the very end of the scene and I was like, not a mistake, this is on purpose. But there was just, it happened so rapidly that I was like, wait, what is happening in this scene? What is going on? The ending also got a little confusing for me. I'm not going to spoil it too much for everyone, but it was just weird because the new love interest comes in, but it's the guy from the other timeline, and then that pulls us into the question of like, what does this mean? What did we lose? What was the whole point? Like, did we just like throw away the entirety plot of as to how we got here in the first place? For that, what happened with this to get here? It was just weird to me, and I feel like it ended too abruptly, because by the time the book ended, I had more questions. I had concerns. I wondered what the lore meant at this point. So that was it. Those are the kind of things I was just like, wait, I don't really like that about this book. Let's just kind of put that little car and rewind and figure out what exactly happened. Moving on to the good things that I liked about this book. I really enjoyed kind of how it was written. Like, I thought that the prose was beautifully written, and I had like a really interesting time, like really getting immersed into the storyline. I really enjoyed how Robin Alvarez managed to include so many emotions regarding abusive relationships and really grounded it in a reality that didn't feel forced or too out of view, like too outlandish to really get there. I also really enjoyed that you could tell there was a lot of care and love that she put into when including the Filipino mythology aspects in the book. I really like that she found a way to kind of integrate like the old with the new in terms of like how like the gods stay relevant in this world and how that happens, and kind of how these creatures are going to stay relevant because of how people react and how people believe in them. And I really enjoyed that part of it, and I was really blown away by how much like you could tell just from the words and how everything was written that there was a lot of care that went into the process of writing this book, and including the story about an abusive relationship and the aspects of the Filipino mythology, and that she really put time and effort to really think about all the aspects before this book came out. And I really enjoyed that part of it. I really also enjoyed the parallel with Little Mermaid and the abusive relationship, where Malaya loses her voice quite literally, the same way that the Little Mermaid does, but whereas hers is a loss of voice because she's in a new world and, you know, doesn't really understand the nuances of the human world versus the real world, Malaya loses her voice because she's in an abusive relationship. She lost her ability to really speak out and to talk to people and to express her feelings to people that she loved, and you get to see her slowly not only find new ways to communicate, but also healing that part of her where she really did struggle to speak out and talk about the things that she struggled with, to talk about the things that she loved and the things that she wanted to mend with her relationships and her family. So I really enjoyed those kind of parallels, and I really like seeing it play out as the story progressed. And it was just such a nice little touch for me. That like it's not heavily Little Mermaid-y inspired, but the aspects of the Little Mermaid that were tossed in there, shaken up like a little salad, really made sense and really wrapped itself up quite nicely with the book. I really loved the absolute loving care that Malaya's family had for one another. It was just like a sense of like camaraderie and a lot of like softness that I can't describe quite yet. Like there were a lot of like healing moments for me reading that book, that like, you know, having a relationship with a mother, as we all eldest daughters know that pain and that suffering, to have those moments where Malaya's mother is like, you're my kid, I may not always know how to talk to you, but I'm never going to stop loving you and trying to find a way to fix things and try to help you. And that was just like such a healing aspect in that little part of my brain that still needs to go to therapy. But I really enjoyed that there was just so much love in this family and so much acceptance. And I loved watching this family, like both sides of like Malaya's actual family and then her parallel timeline family. I loved all of it, and I just loved like that, like we all know Filipinos and their family, we are very family oriented. I just really loved how that played out with this book, and I feel like it stayed true to the culture without like over exaggerating it or maybe using the aspect of our culture and showing the more negative aspects of it. I really just loved the way that they loved each other. It was so nice. Another part that I really enjoyed about the book was just the lore of it all. I really liked how Robin Alvarez kind of took the lore that we have in the Philippines and like clearly, like I said before, had a lot of love and respect for it, but then also found a way to make it her own. And I loved her interpretation of how gods remain in power and how gods remain relevant in our lives. And I loved all the things that she included about the lore and how to like stop the creatures, on how to calm them down, what you do and everything about it. I just really loved it. And like I said, you could really tell there was a lot of love and a lot of care that went into what she put in this book. And it was just so obvious, even from the smallest things like the family aspect to the bigger things like the Filipino aspect, where like we don't have a lot of that in modern media. So it was just really nice to see like a very like fresh interpretation, and a very like not even like a negative interpretation, just a very fresh interpretation of it. And by the end of it, I wanted to know more about the lore that she had set in place, and I wanted to see more of the how she developed it, how she figured it out. I wanted to see just more of the lore. I'm a very big lore girly, if you guys have not noticed about me yet. Right? Is it like that or like that? I think it's like this. It's fine. And the last thing that I really loved about this book was that I think that Malaya's like healing journey, while exacerbated because of the fact that she traveled to a different dimension and caused a lot of hullabaloo, I really loved watching her in the smaller moments that we have kind of come to realize and come to terms with the fact that her relationship with her boyfriend, I think his name was Ian, he was irrelevant, come to terms with the fact that the relationship was so damaging to her. It separated her from everything she loved and everyone she loved, and she just had a hard time accepting that until it came to a head. And I loved seeing her slowly accept it and slowly start to heal from it. I love seeing her start to see that it was not her fault, that she couldn't do much with what she had. She just thought she had idealized a lot of the things that happened between them. And I like to see her heal. I like to see her learn how to use her voice and stand up for herself and learn how to trust other people and to put her faith in other people that she will be taken care of by people that she barely even knows, solely because they care about her and they want her to succeed. And I love seeing her learn to love again. It was just so healing to see this like jumble of negative thoughts and emotions in her brain just slowly start to calm down and fade away until the voice in her head telling her all of these negative things became easily drowned out and became almost nothing to her. And I really just love seeing that healing process. It was so, I really just enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Moving on to my overall thoughts and rating, as you guys can tell, I love this book. It's probably a new favorite for me. Probably will make it on my top 10 of 2023. I think how like I said, the amount of love and care that went into the book is probably half of most of the reason why I loved it so much. On top of that, the progression of the plot and the intricacies of the lore and how the characters came together just worked out in the end as well, and I really enjoyed it. Granted, the ending was a little weird, and I think when I get my own copy, I'm going to reread it and try to figure out what happened. But obviously, a 5 out of 5 stars, a new favorite for me, and I highly recommend it if you're in the right headspace to take a read at this book, because I think Robin Alvarez will be a new favorite author of mine and one that I want to keep very close eye on, because something about her writing just sits right with my brain. But that is it for my review of When Oceans Rise by Robin Alvarez. If you guys liked this one, hit like, subscribe, and comment. If you guys want me to review more books, let me know in the comments. I try to review a book at least once a month. Sometimes we get 2 if I'm feeling a little frisky, maybe 3, but you know. But if you guys have any more thoughts on the books or want to talk about it in the comments, let me know. And like I said, I'll leave the link to my April wrap-up and the book down below for y'all, so you guys can go ahead and take a look at it if you guys are intrigued. But until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!